Okay, welcome. Today we are going to do the Bond villains tier list. These are the main villains from each movie. I just recently watched all the Bond movies again over the course of a month or so, a little bit more than a month. So some are a little farther back in my memory now, but all the villains I for sure remember. I did only select one villain per movie. There are some movies that have like a couple of main antagonists, I'd say, and I just try to decide who was like the one pulling the strings more so than the other. We will do the henchman video after this, and I've just included those others in that henchman video. But the actual tiers would stay the same, so it doesn't matter. I'm keeping the same like tier levels. It just might be that the ranking would be hard. You're like, wait, where would you fit that person over here? But other than that, we'll do the main villains in this one. They are should be in order of by film, so we'll be able to go through just one through whatever it is, 25, 26. And then I did also, just as a note, split out the like Blofelds because you have multiple Blofelds, so it's like, well, it's just they're totally different from movie to movie, so it's probably best to rank them. I will also kind of talk through what ones I'd seen maybe as a kid because some of these um, actors and things and characters stick with me a little bit more from like growing up. Already had a perspective on them, and now I've got another one. But the other movies I'd never seen, so totally new experience. And then I haven't rewatched some of them. Some would maybe get grow on me, and others I might get more tired of over time. Don't know. So these are somewhat first impressions. Again, I probably hadn't seen like the old Bond films in 20 some years, so they're mostly fresh. All right, we will start with Dr. No. So Dr. No, Dr. Julius No, is the title character in the first movie. Um, I kind of remember this as a kid as well. Like he is. I always remembered the movie Doctor No, but I could not remember too much about Doctor No. And after watching it again, it's like he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. He's only in the back end of the movie. Now it's kind of earned. They take their time to get there, right, and kind of create this aura about him to finally get to him. But I really liked him. I liked how he wasn't this just overly maniacal person. He was just kind of this calculated villain and refined villain. I really like the scene where he's with Bond at dinner, invites him to dinner, and is talking through everything. I like those moments in Bond where it takes some time to breathe, and it's not just like a love scene or a traveling scene or something. It's like, no, it's just good interaction at times. So Dr. No was really cool in that regard. And then the scene I do somewhat remember with him from it being a kid was the fight, like him at the end. Remember the big room, remember the radioactive stuff when Bond has to knock the guy out and just starts to overload the nuclear reactor. And then Dr. No freaks out. And kudos to him, actually takes action into his own hands and goes after Bond. A good little bit of foreshadowing in there, right, about his hands and how he couldn't really use them. Then that's what ended up costing him trying to kind of pull himself up. So good job there with the directing. But I thought he was good. I would have liked to have seen more of him. Um, I know they would never do this, and I'm not even thinking it was a good idea. But if they, for example, had, if you think of, I think it was Thunderball, where they had the Spectre agents, around the table, um, that he was in the room with them, right? Like if you had some of these villains together in a room, it would be kind of cool. But that didn't happen. He kind of got wasted pretty quickly. Um, I'm gonna try not to be too overly assertive to start. I'm gonna put him in the B category. He might move up to an A. We'll see. All right, we get to Blofeld. This is a tricky one. The Spy Who Loved Me is a very tricky one because you could argue like Rosa Klebb is the main villain. She's the one kind of leading the effort, but she is serving Blofeld. And it's really good because every time she's with him, she's like intimidated, right? Obviously, all of them are kind of intimidated by him. But then when she's in control, she's like a different personality. So Blofeld commands that presence. He's got the famous cat, he's got the ring and the cat, um, and then the deep booming voice. So Blofeld, this version of Blofeld, you don't get to see or anything. He's just behind the desk. But I really liked him a lot. I'm gonna just start him in the A tier. It's kind of a classic villain. All right, Auric Goldfinger. Auric is a very interesting character because I like how they introduce him, how he's in the movie in a lot of different spots. He's just playing cards and cheating a guy out of cards, and then Bond manipulates the girl to stop that, and he gets dinged for it, and she gets dinged for it. But he is kind of quirky, a little bit not super suave, not whatever, in terms of being like a standard rich Bond villain. He's just kind of an interesting dude. Go play golf, tries to cheat at golf, with Oddjob as his caddy. That's super funny. But he's, one of those guys, a little like Dr. No, where he's kind of, whining and dining with Bond and has him there. And it's kind of goes back to, why don't you just kill him if he's a problem? But that's some of their deal. They've got the horse racing, this was at Fort Knox, so I'm in Louisville. That was close to around here. So super cool locations and fun with him. He also gets involved in the fight at the end, pretends to be in the military to like try to get out, and then shoots a couple guys dead. So yeah, he's a really classic character to me. I really like Goldfinger. And we will have him in the A tier to start. Okay, we have Largo. I think is it Emil Largo? I can't remember if that's his first name, but Emilio Largo. Got the famous like eye patch deal, which I don't know that they explained what happened to his eye. I can't remember that part of the movie, but in Thunderball, he is the kind of suave dude who's willing to throw his failing henchman into the shark pool. Big boat guy. A lot of underwater scenes and stuff in Thunderball, but he's got his yacht, the big yacht and everything. So really, suave guy. That said, I don't remember him that much. Like I don't remember one-liners or remember him being super distinct. He had a little bit of a distinct look, but his actual acting in the movie and everything I didn't find to be like super like overwhelmingly great or anything. I don't know that they could have done more with it. The tone of the movie was like kind of long to me, and he just kind of was part of that longness of the movie. So I will have him, I'll start him at a B. We'll see if he stays there. Okay, we get to another Blofeld already. Donald Pleasance in You Only Live Twice. So this is a classic version of Blofeld because you get to see him. This is after several movies, right? We've had 4 movies. We know of Blofeld. We've heard Blofeld. Are we going to actually, see him? So I will say too, and I didn't mention this in Thunderball, but like one of the most important parts to me was when they were at the Spectre table, like I mentioned it earlier, but in the last movie, you see Largo in there. I think he's number 2. And you've got, Blofeld up behind the screen. Well, like you can't see him. He's got something above him, but you can see he's back there. He's got a cat. That was a cool scene, and it was cool to see like him demand the presence of it. So they had already built up this like domineering personality, this deep voice, like overly controlling, way in charge, knows exactly what's going on kind of personality. So in comes Donald Pleasance, and I think he's super fun in this role. I think he's a classic villain or a classic character, right, in Halloween movies and stuff. But he's a good villain in this as well, and classic with his like eye scar, holding the cat still. That said, it's not my favorite version of Blofeld. Like I didn't. That's not the payoff that I necessarily wanted for Blofeld. I would have loved this version in a Roger Moore movie, right? Like if they did Spectre more in a Roger Moore movie, um, this is the version I would have wanted. That said, I didn't get that vibe going into this, and it did, the Connery movie started to get a little bit more campy, but they weren't quite there yet with this. And so, like, him coming in was a little distracting, a little bit at the wrong time for me. So I would actually kind of put him. Uh, we'll start him as A. I don't know that he'll stay there. I got to see where everybody else falls out. I enjoyed it, just not in the context of that film. Now we get to Blofeld again. So now this is a little different because we switch actors. Dynamics have changed. Sean Connery's gone. We got George Lazenby in. So we are in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Telly Savalas, classic actor. Love him in movies that I've seen. I think, what was it? The Dirty Dozen's one. I remember a famous Twilight Zone episode with him and his daughter's doll, I think, and liked him as an actor. And I thought, very different approach to what we had with Donald Pleasence in the one before, where Telly Savalas is kind of a more just aggressive, assertive Blofeld. He's got a little bit more emotion to him, a little bit of a stronger, version of him. And I liked Telly Savalas' version probably as well. So I'll have that up toward the top in A. And then we get to another version of Blofeld. A little bit overkill at this point. We have Charles Gray. So this is in Diamonds Are Forever. It's a little campier movie. The tone's different. Bond goes on a killing spree in this one at the beginning and kills Blofeld, but doesn't kill Blofeld. So he is like has doubles and everything of himself. So in the end, you figure out he's Mr. White or whatever the building is, and he's playing that role, and brings Bond in, does his whole speech about how he didn't actually kill him and all that. So I thought the actor was okay. Like, it was fine. It wasn't glaringly bad. It wasn't bad in the movie for the tone it had. But again, it's just like we keep changing the same character, and it's not like we're changing it after 10 years. We're changing it after like 2 years every time. And it gets a little old. So I'm going to have him more in the B category. Fine, I think. We'll see. All right. I struggle with this one a little bit. So Live and Let Die. He kind of serves a dual role here. Dr. Kananga and Mr. Big. Mr. Big is like he's got a prosthetic on or some kind of makeup and stuff to make him a different character. He takes on like a different personality when he's Mr. Big versus Dr. Kananga. And then you have the reveal that it's the same person, even though you can kind of tell it was the same person. Or at least it's like, why does that guy look weird? Mr. Big. And so Dr. Kananga, he's okay. He's pretty good. Like, I like the actor all right. I like the character all right. I like the feel of what he's doing. He's good. But there was something about it where I was just like, why do I not feel okay about it? Or better about it? And I think there's some things that come into it. Like, number one is just the end. He has like the most ridiculous death in the series. Again, it's like expanded and blown up into like helium blows up or something. He is, it also felt like his personality changed a little bit toward the end, like in that scene to me. Maybe I was wrong and not paying attention, but I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like exactly the same guy that was there a minute ago. But the other part of this, and we'll talk about this in the Henchman video, it felt like the Henchmen kind of overshadowed him a little bit. I thought they were interesting, and they had like a few different ones, and they were all interesting. I'm not saying they're like the best henchmen in the series, but they were more of a focal point to me than him. And maybe that's just what I was paying attention to at the time. This is an example of one, like, if I went back and watched the movie again, he might be better than what I'd have here. I could see that, but I didn't necessarily find him to be the best here. I'll have him in the B category as well. And rest assured, we will have some lower than this as we go along. And some of these may move again. All right, we have Scaramanga. This is a man with a golden gun. And I know I didn't mention this for a lot of them before, but honestly, a lot of them before I didn't really remember from when I was young. The only one would have been Goldfinger. Um, Other than that, wouldn't have remembered any of them. I don't even remember like Donald Pleasance being, I don't remember Blofeld growing up. So, other than the cat, and that was mostly because I used to watch Inspector Gadget, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of a knock on that, and I knew where it came from. But this one I did. So this Christopher Lee, Francisco, I think is his name, Scaramanga. Christopher Lee is a great actor, been in a lot of things over time, brought a lot to this role, like I thought. And I don't know these other, whoever rates these Bond videos and villains and stuff. I'm sure again everybody has their own opinions on things, and they're all over the place. But I thought he kind of carried this movie a little bit along with his henchman, Nick Nack, where to me the island, his presence, like his motivation as being like an assassin and caring about the thrill of it and the skill was kind of a good departure at this point of the series for me. It wasn't just the standard I'm going to destroy the world. Now there was a component of that at the end which I didn't even think was that necessary, but his back and forth with Bond felt more like, I'm trying to kill a guy, which was fun. So I liked him. I thought he was super, kind of menacing and professional at the same time in his role in this movie. So I will definitely have him as an A. Okay, so we have Carl Stromberg. So Stromberg and The Spy Who Loved Me. So this movie gets a little bit more serious than Man with the Golden Gun. He is, I think Stromberg's the beneficiary of some of the coolest like layer design and stuff. He's got this cool like Legion of Doom looking layer coming out of the ocean that they have to go to, and he is this long table and has this long like torpedo gun or something he tries to shoot Bond with under the table. He's got the cool elevator with the collapsible floor where people fall out into the shark tank. So a lot of cool design stuff. He's the standard. I want to say he was motivated to start the world over because it feels like it was the same plot as Moonraker. Not we haven't got there yet, but in hindsight, after I got done with Moonraker, I'm like, wait, wasn't that the whole thing like with the last one? Where it's like, oh, we're gonna destroy the world and restart it with the certain people. So Stromberg, though, in general, I didn't find to be too intriguing. He was just kind of filling a space. A little generic in that regard. He was fine again, but I didn't really like. People replaced him with somebody else. Was I going to even notice? Probably not. So I'm going to have him in the kind of B, and B's a little bit in the bland category there at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to start differentiating these a little bit. I'm going to move this Blofeld down to C, Largo down to C. These guys. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Like it's a little more balanced. Drax, so on Moonraker. It'd be interesting to get people's perspectives on this film. I could see some people absolutely hating it and think it's the stupidest thing ever. I could see some people saying it was fun. I'm more in the camp that it was fun. I think there's things they could have changed and made it better, and I'm not like one of those like, oh, James Bond going to space. It's like, dude, everybody was doing that in movies back then. Like that's what it was. And Drax, I thought was kind of fun, even though he was a little repetitive of Stromberg. I thought he was better than Stromberg. I thought he was like, he had a little bit of that. I don't know. You're doing a space movie, and people are like, oh, it's like Star Wars. I'm like, oh, it felt more like Star Trek, like a Star Trek villain to me. A guy who was at a secret space station and was trying to like select the right people to go up there, of which he had Jaws and his girlfriend and up there. But I guess they just got the like, you're a henchman free pass. And then James snuck on, and so then foiled his plans. But I thought Drax was interesting. He met the standard, go out into space death, and I'm sure that's what he would have wished if, for a space person. But I kind of liked him. I thought he was interesting. I thought he was menacing, but um, not like overbearing, not like overly campy. It was just fun. It was fun for the movie. I'll start him in the B category as well, but he'll probably be a little higher than some of these. Okay. Kristatos, I can remember his first name. Eris, it says Eris Kristatos. Julian Glover's the actor. And in For Your Eyes Only, I struggle to remember certain parts of the movie because there were a lot of like little side villains. There were henchmen. You had the dude that was like the cross country skier. You had the dude with the glasses. And then Kristatos was actually kind of, you thought, an ally at the beginning, which I did like that. I like when they do the turn, it's, oh, he's the coach of the girl, and oh, wait, no, he's got ulterior motives and he's actually doing this and he ends up being bad. I think, and I could be wrong, like, because I just can't remember the film enough, like, I didn't feel like his villain turn was strong enough, maybe, where it emoted into something like, oh, dude, that dude was crazy the whole time. Because he actually had some charm about him and some people who, were close to him. You saw a little bit of it, like when he, went in. I remember the girl said she wasn't going to skate anymore or something, and he, lost it a little bit. But I don't know that I found it all that convincing. And I don't think it was like the actor. I think the actor was fine. I just think it was maybe the direction or what they were asking to do with the plot. But he's just okay. I'll have him as a C. All right. From Octopussy, we have Kamal Khan. So Kamal, played by Louis Jourdan, I think is his name, was in Swamp Thing, which I just saw recently, was told to watch. But he is in that as well. He's really fun, I thought. I liked his combination of, I don't know what the words are. He's a little brash, little slimy, little something, but he just always had this arrogance about him and confidence about him. Like when they do the, safari hunt kind of deal, I thought that was kind of fun. I liked his approach to the whole movie. Then he gets his like henchman to climb out on the plane to try to fight Bond and everything. So fun scenes, fun character. I think one of the challenges I had with him was not him. It was just within Octopussy, it felt like there was a lot going on. There was like another villain, which I just put as a henchman in here who was a counterbalance. And then even Octopussy had the character, she had like a little bit of a role to play in some of the not so good stuff either. And so I don't know if he got enough like command of the whole thing to like be an all-time great or anything, but I liked him. So I'm going to have him as an A. All right, Never Say Never Again. We get back to Largo, so another version of Largo. This one is strange. Now, the movie was strange. I'm sure some people hate the movie. Again, non-canon. I'm sure some people think it's like, oh, it's great. Sean Connery's back. I'm kind of in the middle. This is one I'd like to see again because I'm a little conflicted on him. Meaning, I like him. And I sometimes think maybe I shouldn't like him as much as a villain as I should because he doesn't seem very villainous all the time. I think they try to sprinkle in hints of him being like, a little bit of a sociopath or something. But when you see him around people, he's kind of just like a nice seeming guy, right? That's the facade he puts on. But it's like, it's so often that you're like, oh, he's throwing these parties and everybody's there and everybody's having a good time. And he's, just playing his video game with Bond and then, up the stakes and the holding his hands and pulling him up and blows him off. I always remember that from when I was a kid. Him playing that video game. I said it in another one. I couldn't remember what Bond it was in, but I remembered him. And I remember him like, finally losing his game, the missiles going back and forth and blocking the missiles, and then him pulling his hands out and blowing it. But even at times, it seems like he cared, about Kim Basinger as Domino. You get to the end and the standard things. It's like, I'll kill her and blah, 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 blah. So they did make the turn. It just, I don't know that I was like super sold on it. It's almost like we were just talking about. So I'm going to say, I'm going to have him as a C, but we'll see. Just, he didn't feel menacing enough to be like a good villain. Okay, now we get to Christopher Walken, the man who seems crazy even when he's just normal. So this was in a very campy movie, View to a Kill. Roger Moore, very old in this movie, for a Bond. He's like, I don't know, 50, 57 maybe in that movie. He's Max Zorn is the character. Max Zorn has the blimp at the end. The Golden Gate Bridge is his demise. But he's a really fun character that you cannot mimic in a movie like Sincerely. Christopher Walken's, even like his cadence of speaking, it's so unique. But he has just that menace about him. And like the whole movie, I was thinking like, oh, he's a good villain. And then he like decides to just kill everybody. They're like flooding the place. He's shooting people, bailing on people. Hell, I remember he was climbing into some like cart to get out of the cave, and there was one of his other henchmen with him. I'm like, he probably shoot him like right now, for all I can tell. But he didn't. I just was ready for it because I was like, he's taking names. So I liked Max Zorin. I thought he was fun. I'm gonna have him in the A category. All right, we get to we are now switched out of the Roger Moore era. We are in the Timothy Dalton era. We have a man we've already seen, but in the Allies list, this is Joe Don Baker as Brad Whitaker. So he was a different character in the later movies with Pierce Brosnan. But here, he is Joe Don Baker. He is like a co-villain. So again, there's another villain in this movie, but this guy was like the end game villain, which I struggled with a bit. I didn't know or feel like he was the bigger villain necessarily, and maybe he wasn't. It was like a wrap up of going to get the other guy. I couldn't quite pick that out. But he sees himself, he's like an arms dealer, ex-military, kind of flamed out of the military, and thinks of himself as like this brilliant general. He has all these wax statues or something of, other historical figures, and then you see him for the first time just standing there, and it's him, and he walks in. And he's okay. I mean, it's like the character is an over-the-top kind of crazy dude, so it's fine for what he's actually trying to be. I just think the character itself is not written correctly. Like, I would have made it a little bit of a different personality and mindset, a little more hinged crazy than kind of unhinged crazy, just pulling out a bunch of guns and stuff. But he was okay. Like, I thought he was all right. I'm going to have him in the C category. So again, not like a D. I can't stand him. Would never watch that movie kind of character. All right. We get to License to Kill. We have Franz Sanchez, Robert Davis. This might have been my most unexpected villain that I liked. I had seen the actor before. I can't remember what he's been in now. I mean, I've seen him many times, and I was just like, why don't I know what he was in? But he's a very interesting villain because he's somewhat respectable. Like, he's loyal. He is, he's, when he says he's going to do something, he does it. When he says he's going to pay somebody, he does it. He's, reliable. Like, none of those things. Now, he's still ruthless. He'll still kill and do all the other stuff a villain does. But I thought he had good character to him. Like, it was a depth to a villain that was beyond just like, oh, I'm trying to take over the world. And I thought he had a good dynamic with Timothy Dalton and a good, counterpoint to his character. and the end is awesome with the trucks and all semi trucks and everything. But yeah, I liked him a lot. His one of the Bond girls was his mistress, and he had this villa, and he had let Bond stay there, thinking it was somebody else, and then he figures out it's Bond, and the standard, oh, can't believe we didn't know it was James Bond, even though he never wears makeup or changes his name. Like you would think there's some criminal Spectre could just get the word out and be like, hey, see this guy, wanted poster. But they didn't do that. Anyway, I liked him a lot. I'm going to have Fran Sanchez up in the A category. And we will move some up to the S tier when we get there. I just got to make sure I'm thinking about it right before I do that. All right. We then go to Goldeneye. So we pivot over. We've got only 2 Dalton movies. It's a little bit later. We got Pierce Brosnan coming in, and we have Sean Bean, who going into the movie we know would die because he dies in every movie he's in. But the good news is it seemed like he died twice. He outdid himself. So Alex Trevelyan is the 006 agent. He and James Bond are at the facility. I can walk through the entire movie because I remember it from playing the video game. So yeah, when they're in the facility, you got to set the timer, and he sets the timer for 3 minutes because he legit thinks that like Alec is toast and he's got to get out. And he does escape, but he ends up foiling his plan enough to scar his face. So he blew it up early, and then he later discovers that 006 had gone over to the other side, but it had to do with the fact that his family was like betrayed by the British government. They were, I guess, Cossacks from the World War II and handed back over to the communists and killed. His family was killed. So he always held a grudge to the British government and ends up turning on them. So he's a great villain for sure. He is a good counterpoint to Bond because he's like Bond, right? Like he's another agent. He has his training. He knows James Bond. There's a history there. You don't have that with almost all the other villains, if not all the other villains. So the personal aspect still for Bond is there. I mean, you got to imagine like he was friends with this guy. I'm sure they were actually friends to some extent. And then, this happens. So he's a great villain. I really liked Alec. Okay, Tomorrow Never Dies. This is Jonathan Pryce, and Jonathan Pryce was tagged to play a maniacal media mogul, like trying to take over the airwaves. And this is, it's always products of their time and things going on, and this was kind of that at the time. You had, 24-hour news stations and all this other stuff starting to become more popular. But he is trying to, corner the market, create monopolies, create wars by controlling the media, and gets close. It was interesting because that movie to me felt a little bit more like a Tom Clancy movie or something at times, with the militaries getting ready to fire on each other, and you got Jack Ryan trying to stop it something. I felt like James Bond was trying to stop the something this time, which is fine. It's just that's the feel I got from it, and also that was like when those Tom Clancy movies were around in the 90s. So this guy though was fine. He needed to be over the top, I think, to command attention the way that they wrote the movie, because it could get a little bit boring if it was just like some guy flipping a satellite on or whatever. No, he had to be a little bit of a maniacal megalomaniac kind of personality. So he was that, and he did an okay job at it. I will have him as a B. All right, we get to The World Is Not Enough. This is Renard, so there's also Electra King. Like I said, Electra I'll put over there, even though she's probably in the movie more than Renard. But Renard's the guy at the end that Bond fights. He can't feel pain. The man who can't feel pain. I think he was like shot, and it did something to his brain that stopped him from feeling pain, but he couldn't feel pleasure. All the other things. And then he at the end is trying to like load the thing into the nuclear reactor or whatever, and then it shoots back out and impales him. Bond gets him. I found him to be pretty boring. Like I don't remember much about him. some scenes where he's just like, oh yeah, that guy looks scary, and then some scenes where like Bond's in the lair trying to track him down, but not much beyond that. And I just didn't feel him to be that compelling. It's kind of a generic villain to me, so I'll have him in the C category. We get to Die Another Day. We have Gustav Graves. It was a tough picture to choose from because he was North Korean at the beginning of the movie, and then he did his DNA thing and became Gustav Graves, and then somehow became famous in 5 years or whatever. Gene therapy or whatever they were doing in that movie. So he is, again, the guy at the beginning that Bond blows up the diamond case, what have you, falls off a giant cliff. I'm like, I have no idea how that guy survived, but apparently he did. And then he is, becomes Gustav Graves. Now he had trained at Harvard, Oxford, something. Oxford, I'm assuming like fencing was his thing. They had the sword fight in the sword fight club. Madonna was there, which some of that was kind of fun. Like it was different. Like you don't see many sword fights in a James Bond movie. So I was like, oh, okay. Was it a little over the top? Yeah, probably. But I thought it was choreographed well for what they were doing. And he was fine in it. That said, the character was kind of like just really arrogant and annoying. And I'm like, why would anybody even want to pay attention to this guy? Though that probably happens in the real world too. Just seems like a complete a-hole. And I don't know that there's a whole lot I really like about him, but we're going to start him in a C category. I'm gonna hold off on the S's and the D's, I think, until the very end. Okay, and then we have another switch. We're getting out of the Brosnan area. We're going to the Daniel Craig area. So the Daniel Craig era, things are more serious again. They got a little campy with the end of the Brosnan era. So we go real hardcore serious. And this one is maybe a little bit of an exception to my rule of like the who's pulling the strings, just because it gets really weird toward the end here. But Le Chiffre was the main guy that he had to deal with, the guy who had gotten into the debt because Bond stopped the plane from blowing up and the stock price from tanking. Therefore, his guy was like way in debt and tried to get it back by setting up the big poker tournament. And then he plays Bond, and it's the back and forth, and his eye, bleeds blood, or has red tears, blood. And Bond thinks he has his tell, and then it gets exposed, so Bond loses, but Bond gets back in, and then eventually he gets him on a big hand. And then, though, he, to be fair, does not just cower away. He knows he's got to like get his money, so he ends up kidnapping the girl, throws her on the road. Bond flips, he catches him, and then he does the famous torture scene with Daniel Craig, and then gets shot. Though Mr. White, I think, comes in and just shoots him because he was like not a main person, right? With Inspector or whatever, like he was a problem for what they were dealing with at that point. So, but I thought he played the role really well. I really was into his character. I never once thought like, oh, it's Mads Mikkelsen and he's, just playing a character. Sometimes you see that with other of these roles. But I was just like, man, he's into it and he's really good. So I liked him a lot. I'm going to have him up in the A category. Then we get to Quantum of Solace. We have Dominic Green. Dominic Green is trying to disrupt the world, and they use business to monopolize different things, if it's oil or whatever. And I think it's at some point they're like in Venezuela trying to dam up water, something, make it scarce so there's drought. A lot of plot that I didn't quite dig into too much. But he has enlisted the help. One of his like henchmen, or I have it in the other videos, is one of the generals, and so he's trying to make sure that he controls the leader of that country. and gets them to sign on the dotted line, and kind of threatens and says, "Hey, well, you can choose not to take that 60% hike in price. Just remember that's what the last guy did, and he's dead." So had those little hints of villainy, while also just being kind of a business guy. There's some cool scenes where he's in the opera house, which you got right there. Though while they were talking, I'm sitting there going like, "Shut up! The show's on." Why I hate that when I'm like in the theater and people are talking all around me and stuff. I'm like, what are you talking to your earpiece? Like, go out in the lobby. But anyway, he was uh, very unremarkable. Like I almost forgot who I've seen this movie. I'd seen it before, like in the theater, and I just couldn't even remember who the villain was, and it was him. And he was okay. He was just kind of a C. Okay, Skyfall. We get to Javier Bardem. Javier is famous for No Country for Old Men as well, being a villain there. Very creepy, very weird dude. Very creepy. Was creepy in this movie for sure. He is a mastermind, kind of an ex MI6 person who was uh, abandoned. I think he had to be handed over. So like when the British like gave China Hong Kong, something didn't blow up. I think he was a tech expert, computer dude. He had some sort of virus put into MI6, which Q was dumb enough to let happen. And then yeah, he had a good scene of like getting Bond on his island and then shooting the girl. It's like, hey, you try to shoot her. And Bond was still injured from getting shot earlier, and he's like shaking as he's trying to shoot. So he kind of misses pretty badly, just I'm sure on purpose. And then no, he just walks up and shoots her. So it's like, okay, well, this guy's pretty ruthless. So I thought he was a good character, and then at the end, it was a strange ending. I think a little bit, but his whole thing was trying to get revenge on M. Bond took her to like some place you thought they'd never find her, but they find her, and then you have like literally no one to help protect her except you and this old guy at the thing. But anyway, to not let that reflect on him specifically, I will have him in the A category. Some of these, it's like if they would have been in a little bit better plot or situation, I would have enjoyed more, and that's one of them. Okay, we get to another Blofeld. Final Blofeld for now. This is Christopher Waltz. He is Inspector, and he is James Bond's foster brother, I think is how it was explained. So like Bond's parents were killed. This guy's dad took James Bond in. They, he told him be his big brother and love him like a brother, and then he resented him because his dad loved him more or something. And then ends up, having this thing where he was pulling the strings behind all these other villains throughout the James Bond's life. Super underwhelmed by him. His performance did not feel like a Blofeld at all. I thought he was kind of dumb. Like he had Bond in a chair, like torturing him, and somehow, he can get his hand out. Like, dude, I feel like I could freaking, tie somebody down to where they couldn't get out, and yet you like have this super advanced chair that he can somehow get out of. It's like, what kind of super villain are you? Now he is also, I think, in is he in No Time to Die? I can't remember. I think so. It all runs together now. It's either the end of Spectre or No Time to Die. But the part I do remember of him is being at the big Spectre table, and they have all the, again, like the old version in Thunderball where they've got the slick room. This is more the old school like room, and he comes in and commands this presence, and everybody's quiet and turns and looks up at Bond and says, "I know you're here, Mr. Bond," because one of the guys had given him up when he finally found him. That was Inspector, and then Mr. Hinks or whatever comes in and kills that guy. They got close. Like when they were there, I wish there was a little bit more of him being menacing, and like I don't know if it was enough gravity for Blofeld for me. And then when they get into the more like intimate situations and make it about family and stuff, I'm like, this is just not my thing. So I would have said this guy's like down in the C category. And then we get to Rami Malek, so famous for his Bohemian Rhapsody portrayal of Freddie Mercury, which I thought he did a good job in. That was a good movie. I mean, I always liked Queen anyway, but now everybody knows who Queen is, so good for them. The Rami Malek in this movie was a very dour, like philosophical bore to me. Like, family, I think, was killed by Blofeld at the beginning. He had gone to kill Mr. White and like instead killed his wife, and his daughter ends up shooting him. That's Madeline Swan. She grows up. This guy, like, gets her, finds her, and then there's all this stuff about nanotechnology and like tailoring it just to kill people in Spectre because they know their DNA, and killing people who, you can't touch this person or else they'll die. And that's ultimately what happened to James Bond. He had where he couldn't touch Madeline or his daughter anymore. And so at the end, this guy kills Bond effectively. This is the one that kills Bond. He shoots him, gets him to a point where he cannot really escape, and he dies. Spoiler alert, if you probably wouldn't be watching this video if you hadn't seen it. But anyway, he is really kind of weird and boring. And I'm going to have it in the C category. I don't even know that I blame the actor fully, because I don't know what like the director was trying to get at. I think he might have been better if he was a little crazier, like a little nuttier, and bombastic or something like that at times. But he was always very just like, oh, I'm talking really slow, and oh, I'm manipulating your daughter, and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, got a little old. So that's kind of where we'll start. Then, like I said, we'll rank, but I'm going to move some down to the bottom. I just had to kind of see who's in that layer, who wouldn't want to see in the movie, versus those who are like just okay in the movie. So we'll separate that. And then, B will still be good, A will be really good, and S will be the best of the best to me. Like who really did I like to see as a villain in the movie? Okay, the bottom of the barrel, I really didn't like the Rami Malek character. I did not like this Blofeld at all. I did not like Quantum of Solace guy. But I don't know that I hate him as much as some of these others. So, hold on. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I'd have those three down toward the bottom. I'll give Gustav a little bit more credit, where I liked the North Korean version of him. Okay. And then if the plot wasn't so stupid, I think the actor would have been fine. Like, and I haven't seen him in other things, so somebody might be like, no, he's just always dumb or mean or over the top. But if it was directed a little different, I think it would have been okay. I like the kind of snarky British version, but I don't know that it's like a deal killer. I just found this guy to be boring. He wasn't, like Renard wasn't interesting in any way, so it's fine. So I'd have him a little higher up, just a little bit. I'd probably move what's his name, Whitaker, down a little bit. Largo was okay. I like this Largo more than that, because I thought this one was boring. I just didn't think there was much to him. This guy at least had like some personality to him. I'm going to move this Blofeld down as well. To be fair to him, maybe it's just because it was jarring to keep switching Blofelds, and we got to one where I was just like, who's this? If he was a different villain, maybe. If he was just the Mr. White or whatever the building was, and it was like WHYTE, like, okay, but you're not Blofeld. So, either act like Blofeld or get out. Those aren't that bad. Okay, let's get up to the B category. So we have from Tomorrow Never Dies, what was his name? Jonathan Pryce's character, Elliot Carver. He's okay. I mean, again, he gave it something, so I'll say that's fine. I'm going to move Stromberg down. I thought he was a little bit boring. I'll move him below Drax. Mr. Big. Dr. No, again, it's a screen time problem for me. I like him. I'm going to have him in the A category because I do like him. But I don't know that he's my favorite. Okay, so I am going to move. I'm going to move this Javier Bardem character down to a B, and I don't like him as much as Mr. Big. I don't think. And I don't like him as much as Drax. Some of these are unpopular opinions. Some people probably love freaking Skyfall and are like, dude, that's the best acting performance in a Bond movie. I don't care. So, whatever. It's boring comparatively. Okay. And then I'm going to move the Donald Pleasance version of again, it's the movie he's in. Put him in Diamonds Are Forever. Replace this guy with that version, and I'm okay. And it just didn't feel right and like the payoff. So I'm kind of like, is he a B because of that? Or is it really just, it's not really his acting, it's the movie. It's a tough one. Now we have a lot of A's. I'm going to move down. All right. Because these guys, it's a little clearer to me that I liked. For sure. So, who are those that are lower in the A tier? Max Zorin's probably a little lower in the A tier. Dr. No. Probably even Blofeld. And I thought Telly Savalas was good. I just don't think they really nailed that version of Blofeld. If you're going to ask my favorite version of Blofeld, it is going to be the just menacing behind the scenes cat petting guy that you can't see his face. But when you do that, you've got to pay it off with just seeing him like once, and he's got to be menacing and in control, and like you don't think you can beat this guy. Not a dude that seems incompetent and like whiny. Like Donald Pleasance's version was too high pitched in his voice and not like in control enough for me. I mean, there were times where it's like, and I could be wrong, I can't remember all about the movies, but when he's in You Only Live Twice and Bond's in I feel like Bond got a gun and like had a chance to shoot at people, and it's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, so I'm sure that's where a lot of like Mike Myers got Austin Powers of like, to just shoot it. What are you doing? Why are you messing with him? You know, it's like, just deal with it. Which, you know, it's fine. It's just, it didn't really, there wasn't a precedent for him being that campy, which was my issue. Okay, so let's get back to it. I really liked a couple of these. Man, these are some, I like these villains. And let's be a little fair and keep the best at the top. I'm going to move some of these to a B, and just knowing that B means good. Like good, fun villains for the most part. C means okay. I'm going to move Stromberg down a little bit. He's just a little bit boring. I feel like I like Drax a little bit more. So just course correcting a little there. Okay, and even this version of Blofeld, I'm going to move down to below Max Zorin. And I like Drax more than those guys. And I'd probably put Harvey Bardem over Mr. Big. Okay, I feel a little bit better about that. And now we're going to go to the S tiers. And who's the S tiers? Oh, this is tough. Goldfinger's one of them. Auric is classic to me. I just remember seeing him as a kid. He's the most memorable for me as a kid. just the scene with Bond with the laser. He's like, "You expect me to talk?" To no, I expect you to die. It's like, yeah. Uh, could have ended there, but then what? Bond knew the code name of the project or something, so Goldfinger's like, "Well, I need to get something out of you." But yeah, I think he's ready to let him die, which is was good. So Goldfinger's classic. Uh, Initial Blofeld, I love. I love the deep voice, scary version. I've talked about it already to a non-ending extent, but I wish they could have paid that version off the most, um, and they never quite got there. Scaramanga, I wouldn't say is an S, but I really liked him. Kamal Khan is the same. Um, I think we're pretty good here. I'm going to move Alec up. I like Alec probably here. And I like probably there for Lashif. And then we have Sanchez Robert Davis, who I really liked. Like, I really liked his villain too. Do I think he's ahead of some of these guys? I do. I think he's ahead of Khan. And Lashif. And this is a tough one. I think I do. I think I like him a little bit more than Scaramanga. But again, all of them are good. I enjoy them. I know, like, there's no perfect Bond villain. Probably the S tiers are close, and then some are probably just viewed as like not very strong, and they have to rely on their henchmen to kind of cover the gaps for them. But that's pretty well the list. So we got a couple in the S tier, and most of the rest is pretty balanced. There's some that I could, again, if I rewatched, like Dr. No could move, Max Zorin could move. Some of these are a little bit more just I know I was kind of bored with them, like Stromberg. It's like, I don't know, he's doing anything. Largo, it's like, he kind of let me down. But for the most part, I think that's it. I could, potentially move him down to a D. But I'll leave it there. I'll be fair, be nice today. All right, we'll stop there, and I think we'll do Henchman on the next one.